Hello, mathematicians, and welcome to volume day one. Before we start off, please make sure you have these three things. Make sure you have this day one worksheet right here that says rectangular prism at the top. Please go ahead and make sure you have this volume green sheet where you're going to be placing your notes. And of course, have something to write with. Now, let's talk about volume, okay? But before we talk about volume, let's talk about area, which is something that you might have learned back in elementary school. So when we talk about area, we are talking about the space inside a shape. So here you could put, when we talk about area, it is a space inside a 2D shape. So this is 2D or flat shapes. So I'm talking about a square, a triangle, a rectangle, a circle. And when we talk about area, we're kind of asking how many squares can fit inside. So for example, right here, I have a 3 by 3 square. So my area would be 3 times 3, which is 6, which is also the amount of squares I have inside. Now that's easy enough. Now we're talking about volume. Now if we look at these two images, you can see that that is a square and this is a cube. And that's because volume talks about the shape, the space, inside a 3D shape. It is the exact same thing as area, except now we're dealing with 3D shapes. We're dealing with things that pop out, such as cubes, pyramids, a cone. But now we're asking how many cubes can fit inside. So because you can see right here, we have a cube. So on this green sheet, I have some formula lingo on the side where we're going to fill out. The first thing we're going to fill out is that V stands for volume, okay? So if you ever see V in here, it's going to stand for volume. Now the first shape we're going to deal with is this shape right here. Now if you were to take this shape and flatten it and make it 2D, you would get a rectangle. So this is a rectangle. This is the 2D version. And over here, the 3D version is called a rectangular prism. Now let's talk about a rectangle for a second. Usually when we have a rectangle, we talk about the sides using certain terms so that we don't get confused. The first one is usually called the width. And our side ones over here is called usually our length. Now we use these words so that we don't get confused, right? We can't use side and side because then you'll be like, which side are you talking about? And I'll be like, what side are you talking about? Now, if I wanted to find the area of this, or if I wanted, to find the area of this, hopefully you remember that we do length times width, okay? Now, let's talk about our volume now. So again, we're going to use a V. If we look at this photo over here, we can see that we still have length, width, and height. So our formula now is very similar, would be length times width times height. Now you might be thinking, whoa, we just did length times width right here. That is correct. So if you ever have a question where it's talking about the base, it is talking about these two. So sometimes you're going to have to use the length times width times the height, or you're going to have to use V equals the base area and now you just have to times it by the height. Now let's go ahead and fill out some extra lingo. You just found out what the L is. The L is talking about length. W talks about width. And H stands for height. Now let's go ahead and start off this problem. So let's do the first case. Find the volume of a rectangular prism with length 2, width 3, and height 8. So if I have a rectangular prism, give me a second. Bam, 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 and bam. It's saying that my length is 2, my width is 3, and my height is 8. So that's how much it is copied by. Now to recap, the formula to find the volume is going to be length times width, times height. So let's plug in our numbers. What was our length? Our length is 2. Times my width, which is 3, times my height, which is 8. So I'm going to get 2 times 3. I can do these two first. 6 times 8. And 6 times 8 is 48. So my answer would be 48. All right, let's go ahead and try case 2. Find the volume of a rectangular prism with a base area of 12 and height of 7. So I'm going to draw my rectangular prism real quick. So my height is 7, and my base area down here, so the very bottom rectangle is going to be 12. So that basically means that I have one rectangle that's 12, and I'm putting it on top of another rectangle that's 12, and another rectangle that's 12, and I'm doing that until I have 7 of them. So you might be saying, oh, well, that's easy. That's just going to be 12 times 7. Or if you want to use your formula, we know that right here on our second equation, we have base area times height. So it's going to be 12, that's our base area. Oh, whoops. Base area times height. So let's do some math. It's going to be 12 times 7, which is equal to 84. And this represents that photo. We have 12 rectangles with an area of 12, and we're stacking them on top of each other with 7 layers. So we have 12 times 7, which is 84. So let's look at our two cases. In my first case, I was given length and height and width. In this case too, I was not given length or width, but I was given base and height. All right, so go ahead and jump on the dots math, and I'll see you for the next video.